This talk was given by Roshi Rafe Martin, guiding teacher of the Endless Path Zendo, a lay Buddhist community in Rochester, New York. Join our practice, in person or online, at endlesspathzendo.org.
Today is Saturday, April 27th, and today I'd like to take up a second koan of Wutsu's. Last week we did The Buffalo Passes Through the Window, a truly terrific koan, one that Master Hakuin termed one of the 8 nanto, or difficult to pass koans. This time we'll look at case 35. That was, the buffalo was 38. 35 is, which is the true Chen? Sometimes known as sei and her soul are separated if we're working from the Japanese. In any case, the case goes like this. Wutsu asked a monk, the woman Chen and her spirit separated. Which is the true Chen? Now, there's a story that was popular at the time during the Tang era, kind of like a ghost tale, and this is what this koan draws on. So the story is as follows. In a place called Hanyang lived a man called Chang Qian, whose youngest daughter Chen was very beautiful and the pride of her father. He also had a handsome nephew named Wang Zhao, and Chang Qian, as a joke, used to say that they would make a fine married couple. The two young people, however, took this jesting seriously and thought of themselves as engaged, being in love with each other. When Chen grew up, a man of rank asked for her in marriage. Her father decided to comply with the offer, and tragedy could not be avoided. Chen was deeply distressed, and Chao, angered and grieving, resolved to leave home and go to another province. The next day he got a boat ready for his journey, and after sunset, without bidding farewell to anyone, he proceeded up the river. But in the middle of the night, he was startled by a voice calling to him, "Wait, it's I." And he saw a girl running along the bank toward the boat. It was Chen. Chao was unspeakably delighted. Chen sprang into the boat, and the lovers found their way safely to the province of Chu. There they lived happily for 6 years and had 2 children. Chen, however, could not forget her parents and often longed to see them again. So they decided to return and ask for her parents' forgiveness. When they arrived at her father's house, her husband went first into the house and apologized to the father for taking his daughter far away from her home, and begged him to forgive them. "What's the meaning of all this?" explained the father. "Who is this woman?" "This is Chen," replied Chao. "Nonsense," said her father. "When you went away, Chen became ill and has been in bed for all these years. That's not Chen at all." Chao went back to the boat and brought Chen back to the house. Being told of this, the Chen, lying in bed, arose and went toward her, and the two became one. Chang said that after Chao had left, his daughter never spoke and lay there as if in a stupor. The spirit must have gone from her body. Chen said that she hadn't known her body was in the house. When she felt Chao's love and saw him go, she had followed him as if in a dream, but after that remembered nothing. Woman's commentary. If you realize the true one, you'll know that emerging from one husk and entering another is like a traveler putting up at an inn. If this is not clear, don't rush about wildly. When you suddenly separate into earth, water, fire, and air, you'll be like a crab dropped into boiling water, struggling with your 7 arms and 8 legs. Don't say, "I didn't warn you." Wu Men's verse. The moon and the clouds are ever the same, different from each other, the mountain and the valley. How wonderful, how blessed. Is this one? Is this two? Just a refresher, Wutsu Fayen, his Chinese dates 1104, Japanese was Goso Hoen, lived in the Sung period. He was the teacher of Wan Wu, the editor of the Blue Cliff Record, and Wu Men, the compiler of the Gateless Barrier, was directly in his line several generations later. So, last week we looked at Wutsu's background, so I won't go into it today. If you missed that Teisho, you can listen to the podcast of it titled Wutsu's Buffalo Passing Through the Window, which is now, thanks to Elena Falcon, at the Endless Path Zendo website. Or you can read Aitken Roshi's comments on this present case and the one of the buffalo in his book, Gateless Barrier. This is a particularly valuable koan for lay practitioners. There are no monks, nuns, Zen teachers, Zen students, Buddhas, or bodhisattvas in it. Instead, it features ordinary people in life's rather ordinary messes. A father tells his daughter what she must do, but she doesn't hold with it and rebels to follow her heart. In the process, while she gains integrity, she also becomes divided, turning into two people, a non-functioning, comatose, obedient child and a rebellious, actively fulfilled one. It's a familiar tale of generations, an old, old story. And it holds a deep mystery. Which is the real Chen? What is it to be whole? And if we're not whole, how do we become whole? How in the midst of conflicting responsibilities and desires can we find wholeness? True identity. How can we resolve the mystery not only of the true Chen, but of the true me? Is the true me the one now rushing off to Wegmans to buy a bag of kitty litter? Or is it the one in the Zendo vowing to save all beings? Is the real me always working late, or is it the one choosing to cut back and have more time for family and friends, not to mention health? Is the true me the one doing focused zazen, or the one daydreaming of vacation? Is it the one enjoying a recent success, or the one in despair about climate change? Might it be both, or neither? Surely each of us knows some version of this old drama. Yet the question remains, what is the real me? So many self-centered thoughts oozing with greed, anger, and ignorance pass through my mind every day. So many realms, so many beings appear, human, animal, hungry ghost, warring spirit, God, demon. What am I really? As we age, impermanence shifts from being a Buddhist concept found in a book to a daily flesh and bone reality. As it does, the question of the real me changes from a distant whisper to a daily dialogue. Which is the true me? The real me, the me of me, is it the mind that knows joy and sorrow, plans and dreams? Is it the body that cries aloud when it stubs its toe, that feels the dentist's drill, that eats and sleeps? And what about death? What happens to the real me, the true me, myself and I, when death comes knocking? Where do I go? What happens to me? Why do I know so little about my own life and death? How did I ever get into such a mess? And where and what is this I'm so concerned about anyway? If you say the one who yearns for enlightenment and wants to save all beings is the deepest and so must be the truest me, haven't you missed the reality of your own actual daily trivial thoughts? If you say, yes, that's me, just as I am, all that ordinary stuff, that's the true one, haven't you ignored the reality of your own aspirations, of your hopes and wishes and dreams? And what about hearing sounds, seeing colors, tasting, feeling, thinking? Who's doing that? Leonard Cohen's song, In My Secret Life, is suggestive. A verse in it goes like this: I smile when I'm angry, I cheat and I lie, I do what I have to do to get by, but I know what is wrong, and I know what is right, and I die for the truth in my secret life. And I die for the truth in my secret life. Well, to go on, if you say mind, what about body? If you say body, what about hopes, dreams, fears, desires? Is the really real you the face you see in the mirror? Is it the secret thoughts in your head? Some people shave their heads, put on robes, and renounce the world to become or be real. Others purposefully do not do those things as their way of being real. Transmission case number 4 of the Denkaroku says, Upagupta, the fourth ancestor, attended the venerable Sanavasa for 3 years, then finally shaved his head and became a monk. Shanavasa asked him, has your body or mind left home? The master replied, truly it's my body that has left home. Shanavasa said, what has the sublime truth of the Buddhas to do with body or mind? On hearing this, the master underwent great realization. What is real? What is the essence if it is neither body or mind? Is there an essential, unchanging person? Or is there only the changing, the now I'm 6 years old, now I'm 80, now I'm into stamp collecting, now I'm into collecting Buddhas, now I'm looking for a job, now I'm retired, now I'm crossing a river, now I'm flying in an airplane? Even Pinocchio yearned to cease being a wooden puppet and become a real boy. Don't we all? Maybe we're drawn to Zen practice because to one degree or another, we've seen how unreal our life is, how inauthentic we ourselves can be. One day we may call out, help, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, help me find reality and escape this world of illusion, separation, greed, selfishness, stupidity, and change. Help me be whole. For starts, to do this, we'll probably need to look into what makes us unwhole. What is our problem? How fundamental is it? If we're not whole from the beginning, how can wholeness be acquired later on? Can you become whole if you're not? Peter Matheson, who eventually became a Zen teacher, wrote in his award-winning book, The Snow Leopard. I hope you all know it. It's a terrific book. Peter was one of our real elders. That while he was, wrote in The Snow Leopard, that while he was trekking in the Himalayas with naturalist George Schaller in search of the mysterious and elusive snow leopard, he visited a Tibetan Lama living in Dolpo, Nepal, whose hermitage temple had been built into the side of a sheer mountain. The Lama's arthritic, paralyzed legs made it impossible for him to ever climb down and leave. So Matheson, naturally enough, asked whether he felt trapped there. The Lama burst into laughter. It said something to the effect that no, he was perfectly happy where he was, precisely because he couldn't leave. Was he making the best of bad circumstances? Squeezing out lemonade when life offered lemons? What kind of wholeness was this? Wumen's commentary. If you realize the true one, then you'll know that emerging from one husk and entering another is like a traveler putting up at an inn. If this is not clear, don't rush about wildly. When you suddenly separate into earth, water, fire, and air, you'll be like a crab dropped into boiling water, struggling with your 7 arms and 8 legs. Don't say, I didn't warn you. Wu Men is being quite encouraging. He says that if you can sort out which is the true Chen, you'll find that for you death itself will be like emerging from one husk and entering another like a traveler putting up in an inn. That's quite a statement, isn't it? But if it's not yet clear, he says we should stop all our running around, sit down, and look into this case of the buffalo. That way we'll have peace. Not the buffalo, of the true Chen. That way we'll have peace in the midst of life's difficult changes, even at death when the 4 elements must go their separate ways. The tangled knot of self is untied, and this life comes to its end. And then he turns up the flame, touching the honest terror that lurks in the consciousness of every conscious being. He gets graphic and, speaking bluntly, says, don't say I didn't warn you. Often in the Gateless Barrier, Wu Men will say something like, it's all a puppet show, really, a silly play, a farce. But he doesn't do that here. He is being totally compassionate. There's no tongue-in-cheek zeniness here. He really wants to cut through our mental laziness, our reluctance to face facts, our ancient fear of acknowledging our actual situation, and wake up. He is grabbing our shoulders and shaking us, speaking to us from his heart, while we still have the wit and strength to act on what he's saying. For despite all our wishing, can impermanence be avoided? Dogen wrote that the sustained exertion of ongoing practice, quote, is not something which people of the world naturally love and desire, yet it is the last refuge of all. It is the last refuge of all. Often it is out of an awareness of our common plight and peril that real practice begins. When things are going well or well enough, we can think, well, death is only natural, everyone dies, so I guess I'll be able to face it when it comes. But then Wu Men, in his great compassion, brings forth that horribly graphic image of the crab dumped into boiling water, struggling with its many arms and legs. He's not being sadistic. He's saying, please don't wait to start dealing with our reality. If we're not prepared for it, the end of life can be hard going. In the song Roll On John, Dylan's homage to John Lennon, he's got a verse that hits this nail on the head. The end of the verse goes, your bones are weary. You're about to breathe your last. Lord, you know how hard that it can be. Your bones are weary. You're about to breathe your last. Lord, you know how hard that it can be. In some ways, our whole life is a preparation for that last breath. And one thing we know, as stressful as acknowledging this truth can be, is that each passing day, each hour, that final breath is coming closer. Tick, tock, tick. Wu Men is being deeply human, and he is caring. From the perspective of his own enlightened practice realization, he's reminding us that the point of the Buddhist teaching is not to burden us with pessimism and gloom, but to help us end the unnecessary, self-created suffering that leaves us so anxious and without joy. He's trying to make sure we don't let our potential down. He's trying to help us be ordinary and whole human beings. The open secret is that dying is living. Zazen, letting go of all we cling to and waking into this very moment, is the foundation of living fully. to cling to this belief, for that concept narrows and impedes our own fullest living now. Wumen is not simply talking about death. He's talking about coming alive. When the two Chens become one, they find relief and peace, wholeness and love. Wumen's verse to this case is one of the most beautiful in the Gateless Barrier. The moon and the clouds are ever the same, different from each other, the mountain and the valley. How wonderful, how blessed. Is this one? Is this two? The moon and the clouds are ever the same, different from each other, the mountain and the valley. How wonderful, how blessed. Is this one? Is this two? How could the moon, though, which is bright and solid, and the clouds, which are, well, cloudy and changing, be ever the same? Aren't they totally different? Some people may say, but it's all one. There's equality. There's sameness. That's it. But if we're all the same, why go to a dentist? Couldn't I drill your teeth for you? What's Wumen getting at with his clouds and moon ever the same? And then he goes, different from each other, the mountain and valley. This is actually as essential as the first line about the moon and clouds. In fact, it's another way of saying the same thing. Only because of sameness can there be variety, uniqueness, difference. Each thing can only be fully and entirely and wholly itself because of true sameness. This is Prajnaparamita in a nutshell. Wumen then sums it all up. How wonderful, how blessed. Yes, isn't this very life just as it is? Or isn't it terrific that this very life, just as it is, with its challenges and issues, or we might, let me rethink that. Yes, say this clearly. Isn't this very life, just as it is, with its challenges and difficulties, its issues and work, just terrific? Isn't it wonderful, blessed really, when the two seemingly opposing perspectives of sameness and difference, emptiness and form, are intimate at last? Yet a personal challenge remains. This lovely summation is Wumen's personal expression of awakened realization. But how about us? When things feel like anything but wonderful and blessed or blessed, what then? Should we try to ignore the pain, disappointment, the anxiety or difficulty, and cling to these words as if they were a life-saving talisman, and hold that despite appearances, all is wonderful and blessed? Or what? To be true to ourselves, to be whole, we might do better to work at getting at least a glimpse of the true self, of who or what we are. We can each, to one degree or another, do this through the ongoing practice of this breath, this count, this koan. The Buddha's greatly enlightened realization that wonder of wonders, all beings are Buddha, includes you and me. Identity, not fragmentation, is our birthright. There is a self of self. Perhaps this is the central wisdom of myth and folklore. The poor goose girl turns out in reality to be the lost princess. The humble pig keeper is actually the missing prince who overthrows the usurper and restores the kingdom. It is our story, yours and mine, a story about true identity, the real me, the real you, our own selfless self. This is the point. Emily Dickinson wrote, "At last, to be identified." At last the lamps upon thy side, the rest of life to see. Past midnight, past the morning star, past sunrise, ah, what leagues there were between our feet and day. At last to be identified. At last the lamps upon thy side, the rest of life to see. Past midnight, past the morning star, past sunrise. Oh, what leagues there were between our feet and day. I'd say that Emily Dickinson knew the real Chen and could easily pick her out from among a crowd of clones. William Stafford's poem, A Story That Could Be True, goes like this. Perhaps you know this. If you were exchanged in the cradle and your real mother died, without ever telling the story, then no one knows your name, and somewhere in the world your father is lost and needs you, but you are far away. He can never find how true you are, how ready. When the great wind comes and the robberies of the rain, you stand on the corner shivering. The people who go by, you wonder at their calm. They miss the whisper that runs any day in your mind. Who are you really, wanderer? And the answer you have to give, no matter how dark and cold the world around you is, maybe I'm a king. If you were exchanged in the cradle and your real mother died without ever telling the story, then no one knows your name. And somewhere in the world your father is lost and needs you, but you are far away. He can never find how true you are, how ready. When the great wind comes and the robberies of the rain, you stand on the corner shivering. The people who go by, you wonder at their calm. They miss the whisper that runs any day in your mind. Who are you really, wanderer? And the answer you have to give, no matter how dark and cold the world around you is, maybe I'm a king. 1,000 years ago, Wu Men made use of a Chinese ghost tale to tell a story that is so true it can still grip us today. Its formative events are still sadly all too common. A young woman is torn apart by societal conflicts of youth versus age, wealth and power versus true love, patriarchy versus a woman's heart, integrity versus submission, separation versus wholeness. Wu Men used this story, which was like a popular movie of his time, to create a koan with the potential to help free us from the deadening effects of our upside-down thinking and the tragic world it inevitably creates. His aim is to help us be whole, to be the wholeness we are. What could be more wonderful, more blessed? Yet Wu Men won't leave us thinking at that spot. He won't leave us there thinking, hey, I've arrived, wonderful, blessed. No. He puts us back on the fire with his final query. Is this one, or is this two? He won't or doesn't want us, or won't leave us stuck halfway. A humorous Japanese haiku-like verse known as a senryu says, this is the poem, Mr., quote, everything is empty, unquote, is hauled off to the police station. Mr. Everything is empty, quote unquote, is hauled off to the police station. In short, if you take such halfway zen to a restaurant, order a meal, and then, when the bill is presented, say, everything's empty, and try and get up and leave, you'll find yourself in trouble. Life isn't like that. Halfway won't do. I think Wu Men is also having a little joke here, too. Is this one? Is this two? What do you think? Hakuin actually wrote a whole verse on this koan. He presents the case as Chen and her spirit separated, which is the real Chen. And the verse goes like this. Wang Chu and his wife have returned by boat to see Chang Yi. Chang's house is in an uproar, people rushing madly about. One Chen comes ashore, leading a little boy by the hand. Another Chen gussies up and dashes outside to greet her. A dark pearl in the red water belching out a purplish mist. A gem is suddenly set out on a tray, ungettable, inescapable. Many people draw swords and stand poised upon the stairs. Chen's old father is clad in tattered, threadbare garments. Wang's mother has on a shabby skirt, many sizes too small. Everyone enjoys the rollicking at the Autumn Shrine Festival. By nightfall, the befuddled celebrants are staggering around. Stirred by autumn breezes, bamboo leaves glitter in the sun. Under a new moon, dewdrops on the pines gleam like gems. One pilgrim, sad to find he's separated from his native land, remembers a beautiful lady he has never entirely forgotten. Let me read that again. Wang Chu and his wife being Chen, of course, have returned by boat to see Chang Yi. That's her father. Chang's house is in an uproar, people rushing madly about. One Chen comes ashore, leading a little boy by the hand. Another Chen gussies up and dashes outside to greet her. A dark pearl in the red water belching out a purplish mist. A gem is suddenly set out on a tray, ungettable, inescapable. Many people draw swords and stand poised upon the stairs. Chen's old father is clad in tattered, threadbare garments. Wang's mother has on a shabby skirt, many sizes too small. Everyone enjoys the rollicking at the Autumn Shrine Festival. By nightfall, the befuddled celebrants are staggering around. Stirred by autumn breezes, bamboo leaves glitter in the sun. Under a new moon, dewdrops on the pines gleam like gems. One pilgrim, sad to find he's separated from his native land, remembers a beautiful lady he has never entirely forgotten. One pilgrim, sad to find he's separated from his native land, remembers a beautiful lady he has never entirely forgotten. What a great summation. Who is this beautiful lady? That poor pilgrim separated from his native land has never entirely forgotten. We'll stop here and recite our great vows for all.